Thanks, Buhle. This week in politics, we saw the much-anticipated appearances and rulings with former President Jacob Zuma in a bid with the courts as he appeared in the Pietermaritzburg High Court on Wednesday for charges of corruption, money laundering and racketeering against him and French arms company Thales. Zuma, under the newly appointed legal representative of Senior Counsel, Advocate Dalim Mpofu, pleaded not guilty, and the matter was postponed to the 19th of July. On Thursday, the Constitutional Court struck former President Jacob Zuma's state capture fees appeal application off the roll with cost. Zuma was attempting to challenge a 10 million rand cost order by the High Court over his attempt to halt the release of former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela's State of Capture report of 2016. To unpack this and other matters that made headlines throughout the course of the week, we're joined by political analyst from the University of the Free State, Professor Suthugelwa Matibetsi. Professor, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that this week was a really busy one with former President Jacob Zuma making headlines, as well as President Cyril Ramaphosa for his filing answering affidavits to suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule. Let's now talk about former President Jacob Zuma pleading not guilty in this matter and now represented by new legal representative, Advocate Dalim Mpofu. What did you make of the matter in court as we saw it unfold?
Yes, I have to state from the outset, I'm a sociologist, and what sociologists do, it's not so much to look at the legal argument of this matter, but it's to look at the social and political ramifications of whether it's the former president, but he was also sitting president. I think there's a long coming, because, I mean, it's now more than 2 decades that the president has been calling to have his day in court, and it was expected that he will not plead guilty to the charges in front of him. But I'm more concerned also what has been happening outside of the court. Once again, indicative that some of our leaders will do everything to just look after themselves and not look at the consequences of their actions, because if you look at what has been happening outside the Pietermaritzburg court in terms of the ANC members or members who came in support of Jacob Zuma, some of them not wearing masks and things, those are some of the concerns that I think any credible leader would have been concerned about.
And the other matter, as the former president headed to court, was ensuring that prosecutor Billy Downer, who's been behind this matter for about 2 decades, is no longer part of it. What do you make of that strategy in really trying to avoid being held accountable?
Yeah, well, I can be blamed for thinking that perhaps even by getting rid of his own legal team, that was another strategy. This is a game that our former president has been playing. I don't know whether he's been playing that quite well, or whether we don't have capable procedural teams. But at the end of the day, I think these are just delaying tactics, because the moment if you also get rid of the prosecutor, then that means it's another year or 2 that will be added to this case. And the question is, will he ever get his day in court? I don't think this will happen if he gets his way, but it will be very important to see what will be the outcome of that. But I think these are all the strategies and tactics that are being used by the former president. And I can even tell you now that he might be busy concocting other strategies to see how he can prolong his case while preaching that he has been ready 10, 15 years ago. And we all know that he actually does not want this case to proceed.
Zuma, on the other end, was also challenging a 10 million rand cost order by the High Court over his attempt to halt the release of former Public Protector Thuli Madonsela's State of Capture report of 2016. That, of course, another political battle that the former president was facing.
Yeah, no, well, that was quite significant. You should understand, unlike the man in the street, the former president had the financial backing, and some of us thought that maybe that's why he's been, appealing and using all these strategies to try and delay whatever cases may continue in a court of law. But I think this is a huge blow, but for somebody like President Zuma, and I say this with all due respect, he may have some financial backing down there, but I don't think money is an issue. But at the end of the day, it's a huge blow, and it sends also the message that sometimes you can only get away with certain things for so long, and at the end of the day, there will be implications. But for me, I think it was a strong stance coming from our thoughts, and we would like to see what a president is going to do in that regard. But remember that also his last opportunity, because there's absolutely no other means for him to take this on another route to try and challenge that. So he would have to pay, and that is quite interesting.
Another interesting aspect on the political forefront is President Cyril Ramaphosa filing answering affidavits to suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashula's High Court bid to have his suspension declared unlawful and unconstitutional and ultimately overturned, and in turn to have his suspension of the president enforced. What did you make of Ramaphosa's answering affidavit? I mean, he spoke about how Ace Magashula's point of view is ill-informed and perhaps a distortion of the truth.
Yeah, quite interesting, but also, if you look at this matter from another side, is that for the very first time, the president was now forced to make a decision and to respond, unlike, this whole political posturing where he will take time to respond to certain issues and even being very diplomatic. I've never heard the president coming out, even now when during his latest visit to France, where he came out and spoke about this case. So that for me is very significant. Also, it gives us insight on how the president also perceived the way that the Magashule have conducted himself, and which to a certain extent I agree. I thought that at least, I know the question is not about the conduct of Ace Magashule, but if you look at the affidavit of the president, it actually indicates some of the flaws that has been committed by Ndate Magashule, and that for me was quite significant.
One of those flaws is the president painting Magashule as a lone voice in his CR17 claims. The president, of course, saying that he is innocent and, he has no criminal record or any crime to account to on that aspect. Is it with substance for Ace Magashule to put that on the table?
No, it is with substance, but one thing which South Africans should never get them confused, because some of our leaders always try to confuse us. Here you've got a South African who used to be the chairperson of the ANC for more than 2 decades in the Free State. Here you've got somebody who is the former premier. Now, do you want to tell me the moment if he's in a corner, now suddenly he's coming up with all these issues? And this is somebody who, a great possibility he can become our next president. I fear what's going to happen if Ndate Magashule should become the president of South Africa. The question is, why wait up until you are in the corner? And it's these things. He has every right to go and lay a charge, like any South African at a police station, to open a case against the president and the so-called Cyril faction. But yet, he tried to delay and play other political, tactics, which I don't think it's going to help him much. He does have support, but at the end of the day, these are just support where we will always hear some of these, pronouncements being made at court cases from time to time by the MKVA and all that. But at the end of the day, Ndate Magashule has to answer, the charges against him by the African National Congress.
And those charges are charges that are rather serious, and this has been emphasized that there is a lot of substance in what he stands accused of. The other point that President Ramaphosa spoke to in his answering affidavit was refuting that Magashula's suspension was a directive from the National Working Committee. What does that then tell us about the factional dynamics within the ruling party?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. You know, this is one notion. I have never actually tried to align myself with the step aside regulation or rule or whatever you may call that. The ANC does not need a step aside policy. The ANC does have a constitution. It's an organization more than 100 years old. So why dilly-dally around issues of discipline? Here you've got an issue of the president, and this whole notion that no, there's a political witch hunt. Are we now saying our judges, yes, are so conflicted that they can't see through it? And I mean, we need to respect our constitution. And we all know once you have been charged, you will have an opportunity in a court of law, credible court of law. You can take that on appeal. So this whole notion of that Magashule to say who have taken that, but he had the right to appeal that. And I think he was quite emotional, and that's where the problem started for him. What he should have done was to say, yes, I accept the charges against me, and I accept that I've been suspended, but I'm putting in an appeal. And then when the ANC takes too long to deal with his appeal, then he had a right to take the ANC on. But yet it's somebody who is not used to be led. And I say that once again with the utmost respect, but that's what I can read from Ndate Magashule. They don't, from the outset. I mean, he is somebody who said that there's only 5 years. So from the outset, he was not respecting the leadership of Ndate Ramaphosa. And this is what, so one of the outcomes of that, insubordination and lack of respect for the rules and regulations of the African National Congress.
The African National Congress says there's no constitutional provision to appeal in this regard. And on the other end, Ace Magashule has said that in his defiance, playing his lost cards, I suppose, saying that he'll expect an apology from the president if he wins.
Yeah, well, that's now another matter. Should he win in a court of law, I don't think the president will apologize because, I mean, the president and the NEC is duty bound. And remember, it's not something that it's not Ramaphosa who laid charges against the Secretary General of the African National Congress. And if there is any evidence of political meddling, that will not stand in a court of law. And that's why I strongly believe that even if there is absolutely no room for appeal, I have seen how the African National Congress deal with such matters. The moment if you are obeying and at least try to negotiate with the organization, they should have, at least by now, have found an amicable solution to this problem. But here you've got somebody who strongly believes, sometimes even when he speaks, the ANC that I know, but I don't know what ANC does the Secretary General know, because the ANC that I know that was led by the former president has actually brought us where we are today. Weak economy, rampant corruption. Yes, certain things did go well, but these are the things that for me stood out for me, and I will put my head on the block for that.
Very well. Thank you so much for your time.